So I'm John Thangaraja. I'm the Research Director for the Center for Industrial AI Research Innovation, or CIAIRI for short, here at RMIT University. And Jörg is the director of the center. This is our first keynote for the year. We were supposed to have it in April, our first event. But then Virginia messaged me on a Sunday and said, I'm in Melbourne, said, well, then we just got to have this keynote straight up. And she was generous enough to come in very last minute. So let me very quickly introduce Virginia. I could spend a whole hour going through her accomplishments, so I'll keep it very, very short. So Virginia is a professor in social and ethical AI and the Wallenberg Chair on Responsible AI, as you can see up here, at Umeå University, Sweden. She also holds a position at TU Delft in the Netherlands. Hi, welcome. She is an accomplished researcher in the field of autonomous agents and multi-agent systems, which is how I got to know both herself and Frank, her partner, and also a distinguished professor in the field. And she has over 400 publications and recently just got past 10,000 citations, which is also a major accomplishment as well. Virginia is a member of several global expert committees. I can't name them all, there's too many. Just to name a few, though, she's on the European Commission High-Level Expert Group on AI. She's on the World Economic Forum Council on AI, the European Global Forum on AI, and the Responsible Robotics Foundations. She's also a member of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences and a fellow of the European AI Association. She has won many awards over the years for her work, but most recently, just last year in December, she was named the winner of the Nordic Data and AI Readiness Awards in the category AI Ethics Professional of the Year. And she has a book on responsible AI, developing and using AI in a responsible way, which is a big seller. In fact, it made in the UK and Europe the Christmas reading list. So that's, for an AI technical book, that's like, welcome. That's all right. That's all right. I'm very privileged to have connected and known both Frank and Virginia when I was a postdoc, I think in 2003 and 2004, and I've collaborated and been in touch for a long time. When we talk about AI and AI industry in particular, one of the hottest topics today is indeed how do we put responsible AI in practice, right? So without further ado, I'll hand over to Virginia to give us a keynote on exactly that topic.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the words, so that you update your speech with the latest things. Very good. Thank you all for being here. It's my pleasure to speak here today. I have some slides, like you can see, but feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have questions. It's much nicer to have a dialogue than just a presentation. And if at a certain moment I need to sit, it's because I sprained my ankle yesterday, and I'm not really sure if I will be able to stand all the time, but we'll see how it goes. Good, so responsible artificial intelligence is indeed a hot topic. It's big business as well, and it's something which everybody in one way or another, yeah, please come in. No worries, just pass. Everybody's talking about it in one way or another. And that will be the core of the presentation. The main issue, or the issue that I would like to discuss with you or to present to you, is the idea that it is, in a sense, very easy to talk about responsibility, trust, and ethics in AI, as long as we keep it abstract and high level. What is extremely complex is to really move from these principles and these abstract values into practical, operational issues. So how do we really operationalize and make responsibility or trust, whatever you want to call it, real integral part of AI systems and AI applications? That is kind of the complex thing. But of course, if we want to talk about responsible AI, we need really to start by getting a little bit of a shared understanding of what AI is. And that might be kind of a joke, because nowadays everybody knows what AI is. Everybody is doing AI, and if you are not doing AI, you quickly will be changing yourself to be doing AI. But it is completely different from what it was even 10 years ago or before when we start working in the topic. It is something which has become common knowledge. It is hardly possible to open a newspaper, either a paper one or an online one, without having some news related to AI or in the whole big sphere. Of course, many of these news are about the great successes that we have been able to do with the technology or the AI paradigm in the last few years. And indeed, there is a lot going on. And these slides are old because they miss the big thing which is missing here is, of course, the generative models and the ChatGPT or GPT-4, which just has been launched as we speak, more or less, or a couple of hours ago. So there is all these developments going around on what AI can do, what AI is doing, and really how AI is pushing industry, is pushing research, is pushing society and development forward. But at the same time, if you continue in the newspaper headlines, there is a lot going on about what goes wrong with AI, how AI is being used for strange, doubtful applications, how AI is making and exposing a lot of issues of fairness, issues of exclusion, issues of discrimination. So there is a lot also going wrong or going potential problems with AI, and we cannot ignore those as we are trying to develop and pushing forward the field. So the question is not so much, I think, what is AI, but much more about what do we want AI to be? We as a society, we as a scientific field, and we as citizens of the world in general. There is many possible ways to look at what AI is or not, and if any of you are following the discussions in Europe at this moment around the AI regulation, which includes a definition of AI, and there is a huge discussion about the definition of AI, which is included in this regulation, because that means that the way they are going to define what AI is and then regulate this type of systems, it will determine what we are doing as AI, and of course what we can expect as well is that if they define AI to mean A or B, then of course the whole industry will all of a sudden be doing something different, which is not anymore A or B, it's C or something like that, because then you are out of this regulation. Anyway, so what do we want AI to be? One of the discussions that comes again and again, should AI be human-like? What does that mean, and why do we want AI systems to be human-like? I don't have the answer to these questions, and to most of the questions that I will present today, I don't have the answers, but it's things that we really, as researchers, as community, as society in general, need to think about. Why should AI be human-like? Why should ChatGPT try to pretend that it's our friend and excuse, and oh, sorry, I didn't mean that, maybe you should say that. Why this type of colloquial interaction with a system like that? Why not a much more factual search engine like you put an input and you get some output? So what makes it important or not to be human-like? And what are the consequences, of course, of having systems to be human-like? Another option that is also a lot of discussion is the idea that AI is a tool. And as a tool, we need to then ask ourselves, is a tool for who and is a tool for what? And tools and all other applications and artifacts are designed with a specific type of use in mind, a specific type of users in mind. I'm left-handed, and all of you that are left-handed, and I'm sure that there will be more than me in the room, we know how difficult it is to use a scissors. And the scissors is a very simple thing, developed for the whole of the world, but as a left-handed person, you cannot use a scissors. So what is this AI tool? Who is going to profit this tool? And what are the type of users that we as developers of the system are envisioned as being the users of this tool? And how inclusive will the tool be? And how are we going to deal with the fringe or the edge cases of those that are not included in the mainstream? Another idea is we use AI as a simulation. We use AI systems as means to understand human intelligence or societal intelligence by building systems that emulate or replicate or imitate some of the characteristics that we associate with intelligence and that will help us understand human intelligence. This is very close to the original idea of the 50s and the 60s about what is AI as a scientific field. And finally, not as important as the others, do we want AI to describe the world as it is, to see the world as it is, or do we want AI to improve the world in one or another direction? If we do want this idea of improving a normative flavor to AI systems, who is going to determine which are the norms that the system should follow, and how are we going to implement these norms? So depending on how we as community, we as society understand these possible directions on what we want AI to be, AI systems will be developed and will be resulting in many different types of systems. Because we know that design of AI or anything else is a choice. The choices of design describe or define what we can do with those artifacts that we developed, and design is political. Depending on what kind of choices, what kind of involvement, what kind of information, how we are aggregating different ideas, all of that will result in a different type of design. And that design will determine what the system is going to do and what can we do with the system and how the system is interacting with us as users and as society. One thing which, talking then again about the responsibility in AI, the idea that we want to build AI systems that can be trusted, that are that have some type of considerations for fairness, for accountability, for responsibility, and so on. What is important to remember is that AI technology in itself, AI applications, the software that we develop is never alone. It's part of a social technical ecosystem. AI, the applications themselves don't exist in a vacuum. They also don't exist anymore only in the research labs. It is important to realize that as we develop increasingly complex technology, fixing the problems and the ill effects of all this technology is never or will never be completely possible to fix it all by technology. So the idea that we can build better, of course we can build better AI systems and develop better algorithms and better applications, but still to deal with all possible ill effects of this type of systems, we really need to go further than the technology alone. We really need to address the social technical ecosystem, those that develop, those that research, those that own, those that govern, those that implement, those that maintain and monitor, and so on. All those organizations, all those people, all those human institutions need to be integrated in the discussions about responsible AI. Responsible AI is not making the software responsible for anything. It's making sure that software exists in an environment which takes care of responsibility and accountability. So if you don't really remember nothing more from this presentation, I think this is kind of the core message that I want to convey. It is also good to realize that AI is not intelligence. Even, and these slides I wrote them already some time ago, but even in the post-ChatGPT or GPT-4 era, still AI is not intelligence. AI systems, AI software, AI algorithms can do a lot good in terms of identifying patterns in data, in terms of extrapolating and using this type of patterns to understanding, taking actions and understanding new situations from that come in the patterns, but still they are very far from being able to understand the context. being very far from understanding the meaning. We have wonderful AI systems to identify cats in pictures, and cats is an important kind of thing in AI. We are obsessed with cats. We used to be obsessed with birds, and birds who fly or not fly, but nowadays cats is the thing. So we have wonderful systems to identify cats in pictures, but those systems, as they are not able to understand what is a cat. They are not able to understand the meaning of cat as we or as a child of 2-year-old is able to understand. So we really need to understand that the systems that we are using, as beneficial and as impressive and as powerful as they are still quite far from being intelligence, at least in the way that we would consider people to be intelligent. It is also important to realize that AI is also not fully artificial. So the whole name is a bit misnomer because neither artificial, neither intelligence fully applies. But it's important to realize that it is an artifact, is built by people, it's not something which just appears or is created by nature. No, it's built by us. It's built for a specific purpose. We define this type of purpose. But at the same time, the AI systems that we use nowadays are dependent on the labor of many, both those that develop and research and use it, but also of those that are increasingly, we are aware of the exploitations that go behind the AI systems that we use in terms of the people that are tagging and managing the data and organizing all the infrastructure that it's needed behind the systems that we are using. And of course, all this is, like I said, is slides that I have from some time ago. And the recent AI developments is really kind of moving and now I'm wondering if I'm, just a second. Yeah, I'm okay. I was just wondering if I was using the right presentation. And in it, we have all these new developments, and these are kind of very quickly, and even for us that have been working in AI for 20 or 30 years, the development and the speed of development that we have experienced since the last couple of months is really amazing. I wouldn't be able to tell you 1 year ago that things would be so quickly and so impressively moved forward in the last few years. So all this, in the last few months, all these foundation models, transformer models, generative models really are creating a new reality around what AI can or cannot do. And we need to very quickly also address the issues that are going to appear and becoming even more evident from this type of developments into the discussions on ethics, on responsibility, on accountability, and so on. It is going to start changing also the way that we define or that we understand AI systems. I talked about the purpose being given by human objectives. It is also part of many of the definitions. But these recent developments might be also changing the paradigms of what we understand AI to be and what we want AI to be. So we really need to take those ones into account as well, because they really are extending our capabilities. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. This is one that I asked. It's not ChatGPT, but it's with the image ones, DALL-E and Stable Diffusion and so on. So I asked it to develop, to give me an image of a Bosch washing machine in the style of Hieronymus Bosch. And it's great. It's really wonderful. It's not Bosch, nor me, nor Hieronymus Bosch himself, nor the Bosch Corporation would ever been able to come up with this idea. It's great. So it's really going, and now the question, of course, is who owns this image? Who is the IP of this? Is it me? Is it Stable Diffusion? Is it Hieronymus Bosch, who died already, I don't know, a million years ago? Is the Bosch Corporation? So all those discussions are coming very quickly and taking a lot of interest in the coming now and in the coming years. So it's really improving. And all of you probably already, who has not used ChatGPT yet? Wow. Go and use it quickly. It's worth to give it a try. So we are all using it, and more it will be used for all kinds of things. So it's really extending our capabilities of generating nonsense, but also capabilities of helping us summarizing reports, creating code, all kinds of things. But it's also extending our capability of what's happening here? Nothing. What we understand and our capability of prejudice, our capability of stereotyping. So in the same day that I got that wonderful Bosch image, I asked the system to give me images of nurses in front of an hospital. What will appear here? What will appear? Females, yes. Females, young, happy, relaxed, have time to stand in front of the hospital. I don't think nowadays no nurse has time to go and stand in front of the hospital and look happy. But anyway, that's what it's, and it's what, like you all said, it's what we imagine a nurse to be. So the system is reproducing our own understanding of a nurse and is multiplying that. So it's now, because instead of 1, it gives me 4, and next time it will reinforce and making the idea that, of course, nurses are young females smiling in front of an hospital. I also asked a doctor in front of an hospital. Do you know at this moment the percentage of male-female in Australia? How many percentage of the doctors in Australia are females? Someone can ask ChatGPT, we'll get some. Anyway, in Europe at this moment, it's over 50% of the doctors are females. ChatGPT, or whatever is, sees again males. And again, this will reinforce, and like we ask things of ChatGPT, and we asked yesterday about give a bio of Frank, and it says all kinds of things that could be make kind of almost sense about Frank, that he did his PhD in the Netherlands. That's true, in the wrong university, according to ChatGPT, that it won the AMAS award in 2019. So I think someone should give him the award, because they forgot. So all these things will reinforce the idea, or reinforce a lot of wrong perceptions. Some of them are just inoffensive, like the award for Frank, but other ones, it's going really to push our capability of prejudice further and further. Which means that there is a lot of work to be done on understanding how can we trust these systems. It used to be easy. In my time, long ago, when I started these things, we had logic-based or knowledge-based systems. We could look and trust the system by direct human evaluation. We could look at the rules that were there, and we could also tune the model and really prove the formality and correctness of the model by using formal proofs. And that work, many of us, and all of you are agreeing, many of us did a lot of our earned our reputation working in this kind of things. This was easy, and this was kind of possible. Then we start getting neural networks and deep learning. The distance between what is happening there inside is much more complex. No one anymore can look at the code and or at the models and really making much direct sense of what's there. But still, we can evaluate this, or we have learned to evaluate this kind of models by counterfactuals, by doing what-if explorations. What if I ask it to a nurse? What if I ask it a doctor? What if the case of this? We have really, and we have the model tuning is not anymore done by people. It's done internally by backpropagation methods, which really incrementally improve the system in ways that we don't really understand anymore how that gets to the results that it gets. But now with the recent developments, with the large generative models, I don't think no one at this moment knows how are we going to evaluate these things. What's happening inside, what kind of type of evaluations can we do to it? Will counterfactual work? I have heard already and read from some that it seems not really to work in the way that we were getting used to do with deep neural networks. And how is the tuning of the model happening inside these large generative models? I don't think no one really knows. So we really need to start looking at the trust in this type of systems in a different way. And again, remember that the system is not alone. There is a lot of people, a lot of organizations, a lot of institutions involved, which if we cannot trust the system, we might be able to put some demands in terms of responsibility and accountability in those that are developing, using, and putting these things forward. And in us, ourselves as users as well. If we are using ChatGPT to generate whatever, at least we should be able and we should take the responsibility of checking the correctness of what comes out of ChatGPT. So we need to go back to the idea of what is responsible AI and how can we move from principles to practice. A lot of what we have seen, a lot of the issues and why is responsibility and ethics and trust something which we discuss now and no one was talking about 10 years ago. One of them is exactly because of this distance that we are getting between what the system can do and what we can understand and evaluate and prove about how the system is developed. So more and more, and especially in the data-driven applications, we really see problems coming forward in all different ways. In bias and discrimination, the brittleness of these systems, the ease that it is to trick the system into believe all kinds of strange things, the way the system misinterprets reality, the way these systems are developed, and somehow, and it's, I think, something for us as educators, somehow AI developers forgot all what they knew about software engineering. No one really knows anymore about, they have those courses, but they probably forgot it and throw it away the moment they pass the course. We just do it by trial and error, and another data, another algorithm, another data set. Let's just try until something makes sense. And also because a lot of these systems are using data in general. But that's what we are doing. We are replacing expert knowledge by the knowledge of the crowd. And not always the crowd is, and in a lot of things the crowd is great, but not always is the kind of knowledge that we would like most to replicate and to use. So we know this, and we all, researchers, but also policymakers and users in general, we know more or less of all these problems. Still, we are using these systems, so responsibility comes from us, for us. It's about we doing and taking the responsibility for what we are using. We also know all issues about data. Data is not a ground resource. Data is always constructed. Someone built that data set. Is not something like water or sand or whatever that exists in nature. No, we make data. And we make data for a specific purpose, and we keep the data and we decide what type of attributes and variables we want to keep, what kind of values we want to take into account, what are the range of those. All those are decisions taken by people for a specific purpose. Data is also always about the past. By definition, we don't have data about the future. Therefore, all data is historical. All data comes with the bias of the decisions that were came to collect and to design, to define it. But we are increasingly looking at availability of data to decide whether or not something is a relevant, important problem. If there is data, then someone will sooner or later solve that problem. If there is no data, it's probably not a problem, or we just can ignore that because we don't know what to do with situations in which there is not enough data to make decisions and so on. We also need to look at the issues of power. Who is developing AI? Why are those that really are leading the field forward doing what they are doing? What are their motivations? Who is deciding about which direction to go or not? And how can we hold those that have the power to develop and to implement and to put forward these systems? How can we hold them accountable? They are, most of them, private companies, large private companies, and they have, of course, as any other private company, their own interests and their own motives and their own vision. So we really need to look at these issues of power and how can we balance democratic values and the power of those that are developing AI. Another issue which is increasingly becoming known is the cost of these systems. I read somewhere that every time someone uses ChatGPT, that costs $2 for all the stupid questions and the jokes and the tryout and the laughs that we had out of ChatGPT. It costs $2. Someone is paying those $. The computational power and the data structures that are needed to keep ChatGPT and all those things around really costs in terms of energy, in terms of resources, in terms of effort, but also increasingly in terms of societal sustainability and human dignity, because and we all know that we are not dealing in an appropriate way with all different people, and not all are included in the way that they should be included. And the systems are not able to address all the different and the huge amount of different expressions and possibilities in the world. So responsible AI is basically understanding, yes, we can do a lot with AI, but the first question is, should we do it? When should we use AI? When is AI not the appropriate technology to use? Who is going to ask these questions? Who is going to be involved in the decision? Who is going to say, yes, we should use AI, no, we should not use AI? What kind of values are they taking into account in those type of decisions? How they are going to prioritize these values and deal with dilemmas between those values? Those are the questions that are at the core of understanding and taking responsibility for the development and use of AI. Now, most of these questions are not asked, and when they are asked, they are answered by a very skewed and minimal set of stakeholders in the whole problem. So we really need to take much more effort in understanding these questions. So responsible AI is seen in many cases as part of AI ethics. Other ones say that AI ethics is part of responsible AI. It doesn't really matter. But like I already said, the issue of the concern with the ethical use of AI is something of the last few years, 10 decades maybe, really because of the impact that the systems are really making in society nowadays. There is a lot of overlap and a lot of comparative studies with other types of ethics, business ethics, bioethics, medical ethics, and so on. But there are some specific challenges to AI that we really need to take extra consideration when we are looking at this the ethics of using and developing AI. Issues of autonomy, issues of the complexity of the system. We don't really know what the system is doing. No one can really prove the correctness of that system or understand how it fully understand how it works. And also issues, we are deploying these systems in the wild. Someone develop it, they throw it out over the wall to the World Wide Web, and everybody is using it. So we don't really know anymore in which context this type of systems are going to be used. So these are all kind of extra considerations that need to be taken when we talk about the ethical use of AI systems. So AI ethics is also not about understanding or hoping that we can build systems that will always have the correct ethical answer. There is no correct ethical answer. Philosophers have been working on ethics and developing many different moral theories, and all of those theories, depending on the context, depending on the interpretation and so on, might lead you to accept different types of results. So it is not really about the answer, it's about recognizing that the decisions, the implications, the actions that an AI system and AI technology can take can be understood from a moral or an ethical perspective. So ethics is not really a solution, but it's much more a social process. And when we talk a lot of discussions on ethics, tend to go around the idea that we are going to build systems that can take decisions like the self-driving car, which direction, who should the self-driving car kill in case that it needs to kill someone. Of course, the obvious question is why does ever the self-driving car gets in that situation? None of us ever, at least as far as I know, ever got in this situation, and why cannot we invest the effort that we're putting on this type of trolley problems into developing better brakes to that car? So that's another thing. But so this is not what AI ethics is about. AI ethics is much more. It's about dilemmas indeed, but it's about other type of dilemmas. It's about thinking how much and how much is accuracy worth in terms of costs, in terms of benefits, in terms of investment. If you take 20% more computational costs to train a system to become 1% more accurate, is that worth it? Is that worth it in all those different cases? Or should you say, okay, if I'm training a surgical robot, I can indeed put 20% more training costs than if I'm doing the algorithm to give us a suggestion for watching a Netflix movie tonight. Who is going to, should we do it? And in AI world, and many of you are AI researchers, and in engineering and in computer science, and we know that the engineering and computer science efforts at this moment are very much led by accuracy. Our conferences are full of papers that are improving by 0.005% on the paper that I presented last year. No one is really telling how much effort was put on there, how much more computational costs are there. Shouldn't we start asking those things? Is it worth to put all that effort and getting all that, to get that 0.005% accuracy? Or how are we going then to measure the quality of AI systems? So those are the kind of ethics and the dilemmas that we have. Again, the same thing, if we are going to build a model that is explainable in top of a model that is not explainable, how much worth is it? Is it worth to put there 20% more development costs? When should we do it? When should we not do it? How do we deal with all this type of trade-offs between privacy, security, between equity and equality, and so on? These are the dilemmas that really need to be at the core of what we are doing with AI ethics. So responsible AI is about taking into account AI ethics, or taking into account that the systems are ethical, but also that they are aligned with laws and regulations in the context in which they are used. It's about making sure that the systems are reliable, they do what they are supposed to do, and someone can more or less guarantee that that is being indeed reliable. Issues of verification become more and more important. So how can we verify, if we say that the system is fair, how can we verify that the system really is fair, and who knows how to do this type of things? Recognizing all the time that these systems, the software, the algorithms are artifacts, and the purpose and the use of the systems and also the responsibility for the systems is from the ecosystem in which the system is used. A lot of activity is happening in this area. There is hardly any organization in the world which has not yet come up with some guidelines or principles for responsible, ethical, or trustworthy AI. It is great because it seems that really everybody is concerned about really taking the guidance and taking the responsibility for what's happening. It is great to see that they, in the broad lines, they tend to agree in what those systems should be. It's about transparency, it's about accountability, it's about safety, robustness, it's about human rights. They seem to agree on what it is, which is great. At least we all agree, and they all are aligned on that. The point is, of course, and what we'll see in a bit, what do we mean by a fair AI system? How are we going to implement fairness or to guarantee fairness? What do we mean by a system to be transparent? How can we guarantee that all these wonderful words and wonderful principles can be implemented at the same time? Do we still get to any consistent system if we want all these things at the same time? So those are the questions that are increasingly being discussed around the issues of responsible AI. We also see that responsible AI is big business, big politics and big business. Like I say, all these international organizations and national governments have come up with plans and descriptions for what is responsible AI and how AI should be used responsibly. But there is also increasingly business around selling AI, responsible AI solutions. All big organizations, big tech and big consultancy are really investing a lot. They invest and then they disinvest. Like today, they, I don't know, whoever killed their whole ethical office, Facebook or whoever it was, Microsoft, yeah. So they keep going one way or another, but there is clearly, and they all see, a business model on developing AI ethics. So we have also to be aware what is being sold under the label of responsible AI or AI ethics. It's also not something only the European and the Americans are caring about, but also all the rest of the world, including China and India and so on. All of them have something to say about responsibility. So we have the principles, we more or less know what the problem is, so now we have to operationalize this. How can we move from these wonderful principles and awareness of what the problem is to really concrete steps on how to make it work? There are several options, or at least the world, we are seeing quite a lot of different ways to proposals about how can we guarantee responsibility or ethics in AI. So for instance, issues of regulation. The European Union with the AI Act is really taking the first steps on that. And usually when the European Union comes with some kind of regulation, quickly other countries and other regions in the world also follow. There is also a lot of work being done on standards. The ISO and the IEEE are developing actively standards for fairness, standards for transparency, standards for explainable AI, standards for the use of AI with minorities or with children or with vulnerable populations. So there is a lot of standards around. These standards are not like laws, something which is hard, obligatory to follow, but more and more companies and organizations are taking up these standards because it helps demonstrating due diligence, but also helps integrating different types of solutions coming from different vendors or different organizations and put them together. We also see a lot of work within companies to implement some type of managerial or organizational structure to deal with the responsibility and ethics. Advisory boards or ethics officers are more and more kind of standard in many companies, especially private organizations, but also in public organizations. More and more they have these privacy officers or ethics officers and so on. In many cases, they are even able to really stop development or demand changes in products and service because they don't feel that it adheres to the guidelines that they have developed themselves. There is a lot of work being done on assessment. What does it mean? Can we have some kind of checklists or some kind of support frameworks to help people understand which steps they need to take in order to guarantee some of the principles of responsibility. But we need much more also in terms of distinguish between different maturity levels and so on. And finally, and probably above all, what is mostly important and needed is a lot of work in education and training, so that AI, responsible AI is not just some kind of strange thing, but is the core, and the irresponsible AI should never be the case. So how can we take responsibility? Responsibility in AI can be seen from different ways. One is the most traditional one, is the idea that we can implement by design some responsible or ethical principles, fairness by design, privacy by design, explanation by design. So we really build into the algorithms, we build into the systems, the mechanisms that guarantee that the results of the system are in somehow understood or aligned with principles that have been interpreted and defined by people around it. The other one is looking at the process by which the systems are developed, so not necessarily only about the result of the system, but the whole process since inception and the analysis and design to the implementation, to the testing, to the deployment and maintenance and so on, really make sure that all those steps are aligned with principles of inclusion, principles of good governance, principles of good software engineering. So taking into account the whole process. And finally, the other way to look at it is to look at us, the ones who are somehow involved in the process, and ensure that we are able to think about our own role in this type of systems, in this type of development. So how much can we do as individuals? And now I just want to quickly move to another one. Sorry, I'm a bit lost. Yeah. Now, yeah, we are back. So responsible AI is looking at the AI systems, AI ecosystem. So it's not only looking at the system itself, the algorithm, which has these properties of autonomy and interaction and whatever else the systems can do, but really addressing the whole ecosystem and making sure that if systems are developed in ways that they can have some type of autonomy in the decision and the capabilities of what the software itself is doing, that somewhere in the ecosystem, someone should have responsibility for what the system is there. This is different to say that the system itself, the software, needs to be responsible for what it's doing. No, it's about making sure that the ecosystem, the people that can be accountable, that can be checked and so on, have the responsibility for this autonomous behavior of the system. If the systems are interacting with people, we need the system to take into account and to provide account or provide explanations for what's happening and what is doing and why a specific result or action has been taken. If the systems are changing, learning, adapting, and so on, we need to have some transparency, not so much about how the code is put together, but about the motivations and the choices that were at the basis of the systems that have been developed. So this all needs solutions that are much more social than technical. It's about implementing the social, organizational, or management approaches to deal with responsibility, accountability, and transparency, which is kind of parallel or orthogonal to a lot of the work that has been done in trying to transfer and to implement this type of principles into software. So for a large part, art, or the responsibility, accountability, responsibility, and transparency is all about being explicit, making sure that it's clear which values are at the basis of the systems, what were the requirements for the systems, who have come up with these requirements, who is accountable for those requirements, how have we interpreted the requirements in terms of the norms of the context, and finally, how we have made those requirements transfer into functionalities. Because we know that there are many options to interpret high-level requirements, high-level principles, and all those requirements and those options will lead to different functionalities, different types of systems, and those systems, again, will implement a specific interpretation of what those principles are about. We also know that we need to trust systems and to learn how to trust systems that are black boxes or that are opaque in one way or another. We cannot avoid the opaqueness of the systems in all cases. Still, we need to trust these systems, so we need to create models and approaches to ensure that we can test and verify the compliance of this type of systems against our values. We also know that there is this alignment problem because the values are very abstract and high level. They are dependent on the context, and depending on the interpretations, they can get very different approaches and very different results. When we look at issues of algorithmic transparency or explanation, often we only look at the final result of how the system has been implemented, but we forgot to look at the explicit and contextual situation in which the systems are being used, and then in that case we can say much more about what the system is doing and how appropriate that solution is for the context. And finally, I think what is important to realize is that to address responsibility in AI, it's not an engineering or a computer science discipline. It really needs multidisciplinarity. We need to include the social science, the humanities, in order to really provide a structured and organized and grounding theories to be able to critique and the impact, the consequences of AI in terms of the human rights, the equality and democracy principles. We need these disciplines to help us developing the structures of governance that take into account power and trust and accountability. We need them to really understand the societal and legal impact of the systems, to address these ideas of what are the values and the principles behind it and how can we interpret them. And finally, we really need to really make sure that the systems that are developed really are aligned with our principles of inclusion and diversity. And the last one, responsible AI is not a choice. It's really something which we cannot really go anymore or sell irresponsible AI or unethical AI. It is also not a question of either we innovate or we are responsible, which is very often the case in the discussions that are around. Yeah, it would be great to take ethics into consideration, but we really need to go into this race and we really need to innovate as quick as possible. We have no time to take responsibility into account. Now, if we really do it, and also it's also a message for the policymakers. If they really describe the need and the importance of policy in a different way, they can show it or they can sell it, if you want, as a stepping stone for innovation, really pointing the direction in which innovation should go, and not just allow for using technology as it is, without really, what we really want with responsible AI is to move the field, the AI field forward. If we have now systems which are great at generating text and images and whatever, but are not really explanatory or are not really aligned with our principles, what we want is to build the algorithms and the models and the theories that allow to have the ChatGPT and all the capabilities that they have now aligned with principles of explanation and responsibility and so on. It is possible. It's not then ChatGPT or GPT-4 is not the end of the evolution. We really need to push it forward. And by doing that, we really can contribute for public acceptance, but also for transformation and differentiation in business. So with this, I would like to finish, and then we can have some time for questions. Thank you.